My next guest now says that the budget will pass, but don't expect that it will give much of a lift to the markets as a result. He's Derek Halpenny, European Head of Global Currency Research at Bank of Tokyo-Mitsubishi UFJ. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Good morning.
Good morning. I mean, I suppose the first question is, everybody, even those who are going to vote for the budget, are saying this is going to be a really horrible budget. How awful is it going to be for people in Ireland, bearing in mind that they've already had a few years of austerity?
Yes, it's extremely tough. It's about 4% of GDP in just 1 year, and the whole package of 15 billion is not far off 10%, and we've already had that amount in the previous 2 years since the financial crisis began. So this is a huge burden. And
are there likely to be any more surprises in the budget? It's been quite heavily trailed, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thunder was really taken by the announcement 2 weeks ago in regard to the 4-year plan. So I don't really think there's going to be any huge surprises in the actual detail of the budget today. And as I said, I think really the announcements from the two independents yesterday evening in regard to supporting the budget makes it highly likely that it will pass when it's presented to the Dáil later on this afternoon.
And now, politically, bearing in mind that we've got an election in the new year, and that Fine Gael and Labour are likely to be the recipients of those votes from the disgruntled people who've had to put up with all these austerity cuts. What are they going to do? How do they play this budget?
In today's vote?
Yes, in today's vote.
Well, Fine Gael basically are supporting the idea of 6 billion worth of cuts. Where they disagree with the government is just on the mix and how that's achieved. So really, they're on tenuous grounds for voting down the budget as it stands. And even some of the Fine Gael members have threatened to abstain if there's any risk of rebellions amongst Fianna Fáil members or the two independents.
So in a way, politically, the fact that this budget should pass and therefore the IMF and EU bailout becomes triggered and it all starts is actually probably better for all the parties.
It is. Like, really, the political uncertainty, I think, has subsided now. Yeah. I think the FX markets have moved on. But I think going into next year, there's a high risk that we could potentially come back to political uncertainty in Ireland. If there's a very strong election result for Fine Gael and Labour, that will have been won on a mandate of renegotiating the terms of the bailout, and therefore they will have to sit down again with the IMF and the EU, and the likelihood of the IMF and the EU wanting to renegotiate at that point in time is very unlikely. So it could result in a significant rise in tensions with Ireland.
And indeed, that would also spook the markets.
Yes, it would. Certainly, that's the next kind of period of political uncertainty potentially coming from Ireland.
Now, there's an awful lot of talk that Ireland would restructure debt at some stage from commentators within Ireland. Do you think that that is something that's likely to happen at some stage?
I think certainly there is a significant risk. I think the benefits for Ireland is that if you look at, say, the measures of competitiveness that the European Commission publish, the positive for Ireland is that already there's been a significant readjustment. Now, we're still well away from where we were in 1999, but ultimately it does show that there's a significant degree of flexibility in the Irish economy that I think does not exist in the countries like Greece, Portugal for sure, and possibly Spain. So in that sense, I think if there is a country that could potentially grow itself out of this without debt restructuring, it is Ireland. But I would still say it's very dependent on external conditions, and if we don't see a global recovery being sustained, there's a high likelihood of debt restructuring.
OK. Derek, thank you very much indeed for joining us today.